Welcome, everyone. My name is Hallie, and I'm a member of the Quad Education team. And today we are talking about how to plan for your junior year of high school. So for those of you that don't know, Quad Education is an admissions consulting company, and we work with students and families through their entire college application process and planning process, all the way from beginning to think about college through applications, essay writing, test taking, and actually deciding where you want to go to school. So we have two of our consultants here with us today who work with students and families through that whole process to give you some tips on how to plan for your junior year of high school and set yourself up for success when it comes to college applications next year. And I think you are here in the summer before your junior year, you're probably a step ahead. So hopefully we can give you some more tips and tricks to help get you through junior year. It's an exciting time. So we'll introduce our consultants today. We'll talk about academic goals. We'll talk about extracurriculars, college planning. We'll go over some tips for success for all of those things. And then we'll open things up for a Q&A. So if you have any questions, pop those in the Q&A chat and we will get to those at the end. Additionally, we are recording this webinar and you'll be sent an email with a recording of this webinar in it in the next couple of days. All right, let's dive in. So we have Arianna and Fedjounie here with us today. Arianna, can you introduce yourself for us?
Indeed. Hi, everyone. I'm Arianna Lee, and I'm a Dartmouth College graduated with a bachelor's in neuroscience, and I'm a missions counselor here at Quad. And this is such an awesome topic to really just dive into, and you all are doing the best thing possible by getting an early start on your junior year and planning for success. So I look forward to talking about this with you all.
Hello,
Thanks so much for being here. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Fedjounie.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Fedjounie, and I am a Princeton grad, like Arianna, and soon to be Columbia grad. And I am very excited to be talking to you all. I'm very engaged with student growth and development, and I feel like Quad Education is a really great resource for you and your family to really map out that next step for your high schooler. So we're really excited to jump into today's content with you all.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for being here. I'm excited to hear what you all have to say about this topic. So let's start with talking about academic goals.
Absolutely. So as we are all here, we are planning for our future, our successful future, right? Your 11th grade year. So setting academic goals help to provide that sense of direction. It aligns your actions with long-term ambitions. Unless you all are like me and have Post-it notes and, things of that nature, it's good to have attainable set goals that you are tracking and keeping yourself accountable to. So academic goals help to foster that personal growth, cultivate skills, and self-awareness. These are all skills that are very important for your next years at college as well, helping to just prepare yourself and set you on the right direction and mindset of planning. So it helps to make informed decisions for, again, college planning and ensure that tailored approach to meet those requirements that are needed.
Awesome. Yes, I definitely agree with you, Arianna. And I want to echo that key point that you made about goals. Goals are important for all facets of your life, not just academic, because they help you ground yourself in the present, but also think about the future and the ways that the you today can make things better for the you tomorrow. And in the academic setting, it is most important. This includes grades. This includes extracurriculars, right? This includes AP classes or honors classes, challenging yourself in ways that aren't necessarily solely in the classroom as well. So we'll get into the nitty-gritty soon. Okay, so some tips to create achievable goals. It is always recommended that you are very specific in creating your goals so that you know what it is that you want to do, right? How it is that you could potentially do it and where it will potentially lead you, right? Like having that outlook and that vision by clearly defining your goals and being specific about what you would like to achieve will help you in achieving that, right? Make them measurable. If you have a goal that you know is accomplishable in a week, or you know that you can create 1 to 2 paragraphs of your 5-page essay a day, right? Like make it something that you can add a number to or a qualitative factor to, so that you can keep track of your progress. And that will help you in boosting like your sense of accomplishment, as well as just helping you understand the progress that you've made, right? And be realistic. I think sometimes we set our goals in a New Year's mindset, right? Like it is a new year, new me. I'm going to do all the things that I've never ever done before because it's just the clock struck 12 and I have a different mindset. And honestly, for a lot of people, that ends up setting you up for failure because you don't really think about who you are as a person. And then it makes those goals something that's like outlandish, right? Like you start to see it as something like, oh, I couldn't possibly reach those goals. So it's better to think about challenging yourself, but be realistic about what you can accomplish in any given time frame and what you can accomplish as a person, right? Like if your goal is to run a 3-mile race through the Adirondack Trail, but you have no way to get to the Adirondack Trail, is that realistic? So yeah, just thinking about these things when planning out for your academic goals within your junior year, okay? As well as personal goals.
Absolutely agree. And I just want to also echo that too. Realistic goals. So if you're saying, hey, I'm going to work on my personal essay, you don't want to say I'm going to write it all tomorrow. Don't let the actual goal be your steps. So make them measurable, make small steps, hey, I'm going to write 50 words today, or I'm going to brainstorm and come up with 10 different ideas. Like make them small enough goals where you can hold yourself accountable and you can make smaller and smaller and smaller goals out of the small goal. So that way you can track that achievement.
Yes.
So sounds like breaking it down into baby steps is kind of a good way to go about it.
Yes.
All right.
Right.
There we go.
Yes. So as I just said, breaking them down, the overarching milestone, you want to make it manageable. So that way, like if you know the essay that you're going to write is going to take a couple of steps of revision, maybe you're saying, hey, I'm going to make a first draft by the end of next week. And this is what I'm going to do every day to create that first draft. Maybe I'm going to do a paragraph a day, or I'm going to brainstorm the first day. You just want to make them manageable enough tasks where you can hold yourself accountable. And again, you're preparing yourself for college. And this is what you'll have to do in college as well. Set deadlines. So again, as we said, measurable, assign those deadlines to your goals and sub goals. So saying, hey, I'm going to have this done by tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And holding yourself to that will create that sense of urgency and help you stay on track. You don't want to be 11:59 p.m. the day before November 1st or November 15th, writing your last sentence to submit your application. You want to be well in advance where you can review and adjust accordingly, both your goals and your actual, application when necessary.
Yes. Definitely echo all that Arianna has shared. And I want to share with you all a technique for setting deadlines and adjusting. Working backwards is a really great tool that just self-help people recommend, right? Looking at your calendar and working backwards from the deadline rather than planning towards the deadline so that you know realistically how long it would take you to achieve X, Y, and Z portion that will get you to the larger goal, right? So calendaring and using a virtual or like a real-time calendar planner to realistically space out your goal and reach it in a timely fashion set to those deadlines, and giving yourself leeway, as Arianna shared, right? Like you want to give yourself a week just in case something crazy happens in life, right? Like you don't ever want to push it to the last moment of the deadline because things happen. Sometimes your laptop deletes your entire personal statement and you have to write it from memory, and you hate to have that, but I'm speaking from a terrible traumatic experience. But yes.
Definitely echo that. When I was applying to college, there was a massive snowstorm in my town and everyone lost power for like 10 days, like mid-October. So like I spent many days sitting on like the floor in Barnes and Noble trying to work on my college applications, and got them in before the deadline, thankfully, but you don't know what's going to happen. Definitely start early there. Give yourself some extra time.
So our next point of discussion is just about courses and academic enrichment activities that you can pursue. We kind of spoke about these earlier when we were talking about academic goals. But in your junior year of high school, you may have a lot of opportunities to continue enriching your education both in and outside of the classroom. And most schools are looking for students who take advantage of those opportunities. So we like to emphasize for our students to take advantage of AP courses. So these are advanced placement courses that are typically offered through a student's school, right? You'll have the opportunity to take them in different subject areas. Some schools do not offer them. And if you don't have an opportunity to access those courses, you can actually still take the exam without having the class. Or you could substitute that with some college level courses at your local community college, or any advanced, like challenging academically program, research opportunity, anything that you can add to your resumes. We definitely encourage language studies, as a lot of schools actually recommend 1 to 2 years of language in students' requirements as a college applicant, like language studies. We recommend electives and specialized courses. If your school offers these opportunities, take advantage to show your interest and your passion in the arts or in specialized STEM courses, right? Opportunities there, as well as standardized test prep. So a lot of you will be taking the SAT or the ACT, and a key component to getting a successful score on this test is not only content, but understanding the test. And that requires someone teaching you the test. So we definitely recommend preparing in some fashion or capacity, and Quad Education actually has those resources if you would like support with that. And we recommend STEM courses and programs. So this includes summer programs, internships, externships, all of those opportunities that are available. Honestly, I recommend for my students to even present their research at local colleges and things like that if they have an opportunity, or go to hack tech events or other things that local colleges in their areas host as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Especially hackathons. I forgot about that. That's something that can even be done remotely too. They sometimes have online hackathons. But yeah, and remember too, when you all are planning, and we'll get into this later, your college list, you want to start looking and seeing, hey, what courses do I need for this year? This might be something that you've already been working along with your counselor, or with looking at the classes that you're going to be taking the following year. But start seeing what might be needed. And remember that admissions officers are going to look and see, hey, did you take the classes, did you take everything that was available to you? Did you take advantage of the opportunities that were presented? And if you're applying to schools that are more competitive, that might be something that you're analyzing in advance as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, awesome.
Yes. And also just more specialized like STEM degrees, they require some levels of calculus or like some levels of science to enter into those programs. And it could be the difference between a waitlist or deferral and an acceptance because you don't necessarily have that course or you haven't proven that you're pursuing that advanced preparation, because they're also thinking about how you'll achieve as a student if you go not prepared, right, with those specific courses.
Very true.
So with this, say that your school only lets you take 3 APs a year or 2 APs a year. Will that hold you back? And then kind of on the opposite side of that, should you take every single AP available to you? Like how do you balance like knowing that workload with everything else and knowing like you need to get good your GPA? Do you have any tips for that?
Oh, yeah. So on my end as a counselor, I know that all of your schools are typically required by schools to send a school profile. So your counselor, your guidance counselor or support counselor, whatever your school calls it, will be required to send a 1-page write-up typically about your school, AP offerings, all of that information, student graduation rates, right? And that information will be shared largely, but you could also highlight it in your application. Right? My school only allows us to take 3 APs per year, if that is your specific circumstance. And taking every AP possible, I would not recommend. If you are a student who is very active and involved, it may not make sense for you to pile on APs if you're not going to get an A or a B or a good grade in that class, because AP classes also require extra work than like a regular high school course, because you're preparing for a test while also learning these very specific subject things. So I would recommend for students to pursue APs that they're more passionate about, or things that they're just interested in learning, or things that relate to their major, if they want to highlight experience within those fields of study.
Absolutely. And you should benchmark too. How am I performing in these classes? Can I handle everything? Is this is a great time to start figuring out what is your threshold? How much can you actually handle? And also, just as Fedjounie already said, the STEM courses, specializations, if you're looking to pursue dual degree programs, things of that nature, those are also things you want to start figuring out your junior year as well, because those particular classes might be the APs that you opt for versus AP film or AP of another class.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you both. All right, let's talk about extracurriculars. And this is, all of these topics we're covering today could be their own webinars and multiple webinars. We do have an extracurricular webinar coming up on August 1st. You can register for that on our website, but that will go in depth on planning for extracurriculars. But we'll give you kind of the junior level focused points today, or junior year focused.
Awesome. So the importance of extracurricular activities in your junior year. So as we mentioned before, you are trying to set yourself apart when you're getting ready to apply to school through school applications. Admissions officers are going to want to see who was this individual, what were things that they were interested in, how did this all come across their high school career. So these activities you choose to go, that you're already participating in, these activities are meant to go beyond academics. They're allowing you to develop essential skills, explore personal interests, and of course, develop that well-roundedness that admissions officers want to see, as well as just for yourself. You should be wanting to be well-rounded and figure out who you are as well as an individual. So you will likely have already participated in extracurriculars already, but how can you go further into these extracurriculars? How can you take on leadership responsibilities? And again, you don't have to be a leader in every activity. You can choose to make meaningful impact in extracurriculars that you take on, even if it is personal interest. But how are you going to show impact? And if it is a passion project, how are you keeping that accountability? Who is your accountability partner / teacher / check-in point for determining what you're doing is making an impact?
Mm-hmm. Yes. All the things that Arianna has shared, and highlighting that leadership doesn't always look the same way too, right? Like you don't have to be president to be a leader in a club. Like if you are the person who makes sure everyone gets heard, that is also showing leadership. And oftentimes your advisor or whoever that support person, right, Arianna was talking about, will see that and they'll help you think about how you can work that into your work, or they could even write it in your personal statement, right, in their letters of recommendation on you about the ways that you show up. So always bring your best self to those extracurricular activities, I guess is the final point, and think about how you can have better relationships with your classmates, with your school, with some of the people who will be writing recommendations for you through the showing of your character in these spaces. So our next point, so tips on selecting extracurricular activities, because we've talked about the importance of them, but not necessarily how you would choose. So we want to make sure you guys know that it is important to reflect on your own interests and passions, right? There's no set list of extracurriculars that if you do, you'll get into Princeton. There's not. People create their own clubs. People create startups now, right? As high schoolers. So there are so many different ways that you can choose an extracurricular that isn't student council, or you can do student council, right? Like you get that agency and that choice, because ultimately, right, the extracurricular activities that you're doing, they'll speak to who you are as a student, and you want that to be the same story, right? So you don't want to take extracurriculars that you're not really interested in, because when it becomes time to write about them, how's your passion going to show through, right? So think about the things that you care about. Think about things that align with who you want to become, your hobbies, your talents, areas where you're feeling motivated, academically challenged. Think about things that you've enjoyed in the past, if it's a sport, if it's a student club, theater, anything, right? We also want you to explore some different options. Don't do things that you've always done since middle school. Like do some of them, but also try different things, especially in your sophomore and junior year. There will be more opportunities, right? Because you're upperclassmen, to get involved in student groups and other extracurricular activities and take on leadership roles. So take advantage of that and use it as an opportunity to broaden your horizon, right? Discover new things about yourself, learn a new language, play a new instrument, right? Do things that push you out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely agree. I know a lot of times students will come and they will want to do everything because they think that's what everyone wants to see is me in 15 different clubs being leaders in all of those clubs. But no, that's the farthest from the truth. Do what you're passionate about, as it will naturally show. You'll naturally become a leader in those areas because you're so excited about taking on more roles, taking on more responsibility and projects. And And again, this is the time where you start figuring out, what do I want to major in? What are my what are potential career paths that I see myself going into? So you're naturally going to be shaping your extracurriculars around what you love to do and what you foresee becoming. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just naturally guide yourself to what you're passionate in, and you'll see you taking on leadership roles within that. Mm-hmm. Or you should, I should say.
All right.
Okay. Awesome. So tips on selecting extracurricular activities, part 2. Consider your goals and aspirations. So as we already talked about, that seems to be a theme today. Selecting activities that focus on your plans, such as pursuing a specific career or developing those skills relevant to your desired field of study. So as we had already mentioned, what you are naturally passionate about or see yourself becoming, those are things that will naturally shape itself in the extracurriculars that you choose. But as Fedjounie already said, try something new. Try something that you didn't think that you would like. Like I tried quilting in high school, and that took on a passion project. Also, prioritizing quality over quantity. You don't want a lot of everything, because it will, one, spread yourself too thin. You're already trying to balance classes and doing well in those classes. So making meaningful choices as far as the extracurriculars that you choose to participate in is important. You want to put your energy, time into few things that you really see yourself doing further, or that you're trying something new. Following your curiosity. Again, as we talked about, shaping those interests that you didn't even know that you had. Following your instincts. Maybe you try volleyball because you've always wanted to do club volleyball, or maybe you try robotics, or whatever the case is. This is still fine to do. On your application, you can always explain, hey, I've always wanted to try this. This is something that I chose to do, and this is what I learned. This is a skill set that I developed. Or here are projects that I did on a new activity that I didn't know I would enjoy. You don't have to worry how everything will look to a college admissions officer, as long as you can explain the why behind it. That's what you would want to focus on.
Yes, most definitely. I agree with Arianna, right? Thinking about the future, having a future focus, and also thinking about your why. I echo that, because it really is important. Like, that is a theme that you'll see all up and down your application in every single aspect, right? Like, who or what, why, and why does it matter to future you, right? Like, that's how your personal statement is going to flow, right? Like, that why is something that schools are looking for, because they are typically making an investment in you, or bringing you into a larger community, right? Like, they're universities, you live there. They want to know who you are and why you are who you are. So thinking about how these extracurriculars will also inform you of who you are, right? Like, this is an opportunity to learn more about yourself before even knowing, right? We don't want you to know everything, as Arianna said, right? Taking up quilting taught her that maybe quilting or like pattern design, this is something that I like to do, like, that is really great to know about oneself, right? And you can put it in your writing however you'd like to see fit, or have it as an extracurricular listed, right? But all of those things are very impactful, because it presents a clearer picture of you.
All right.
So now we've talked about the laundry list of extracurriculars, all the possibilities, doing the leadership, but we haven't talked about balancing it. Like, I was the kind of student who did 8 or so extracurriculars on top of working in school and APs and all of the things. And it was often really hard to have that set schedule for myself that made sense to all of my goals. So I definitely stress it for all of my students to really take advantage of calendars, take advantage of planners, take advantage of your phone. Your phone calendar is your best friend, especially when you're working. That is like, you'll come to see that your phone calendar is your best friend. And making sure that you are aware. I know like some of you have parents who keep track of everything, but taking ownership of that a bit more will help you feel like this is your extracurricular, right? As well as preparing you for the future, because your parents won't be able to map out your college classes or the time your sorority or fraternity meets and all. Like, these are things that you're going to have to do. So it's good to start now and start preparing. Set realistic expectations of yourself, right? And be clear, communicate those clearly with your student clubs, your groups, right? Like, if you can't go to theater practice on Saturday because you have to meet with your Kumon tutor, right? Like, that's something that you can share. Or, I don't know, understand that you won't have every single hour to devote to every single extracurricular. So you have to be specific about how you prioritize that time, and also communicate, because you are an adult and we communicate with each other. So no one is waiting around for you and not thinking of the best of you, right? We want you to stay organized, because you're doing a lot of things and it's easy to lose track of all the things. Keep notes on how you're contributing to the extracurriculars and projects you have worked on, because you will need this when you're writing about your extracurriculars on the Common Application, or just writing stories, anything, right? It helps you to create a resume, a brag sheet for your recommender. So there are a lot of different ways that this will be helpful in the future. So start doing it now. Don't be afraid to try something new or switch gears, right? Like, if you're not enjoying a club, I love this quote. It says, "There's no quitters. They're just people who aren't afraid to try something new," right? Like, sometimes you have to leave something that doesn't serve you so that you can find something that really does, and sticking to it because you have, there's like sunk costs. It's this understanding that I put so much time into it, I can't leave it now. But you're losing more time not moving on, right? So think about when you can switch to something new and put your talents elsewhere, right? And do not participate in extracurriculars that you think that colleges want to see. Because as we've said, right, there is no list of magic extracurriculars that will get you into X, Y, and Z school. It's not realistic. There are thousands of people applying to thousands of schools, and they're so different. They have access to different things, right? So think about being the most you that you could be and showing that through all the opportunities that you take advantage of. Okay? So participate in extracurriculars that you enjoy and are really passionate about.
That's awesome. No, absolutely. I just want to repeat, keep notes on what you're doing, awards, even little certificates that you might be awarded that you don't think anything of. Everything, just write the list out. You don't realize how great that will come to be handy for when you're writing your application, when you're doing your Common App. Also, if you haven't already, create a Common App account and start just keeping a running tab of your extracurriculars, and you can always move them around as far as in list of importance, but just start getting familiarized with what is going to be asked of you for your application.
One note on the Common App: if you are to create a Common App account now, I would say like keep it in a document or Word, because Common App every August they refresh, so like they delete profiles. So if you create a Common App now and you start working, next year when you really need it, that all of that information may be gone. So
very true.
I would say go to Common App to look at the style. You know, like they do characters, not words. So you have to be really succinct in how you explain things. But like look at that format and then write it somewhere else. Okay.
Very true. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, they get you.
All right, let's dive into planning for college. And also, if you have any questions, definitely start popping those in the chat box so we can get to those at the end.
Awesome. So as we mentioned before, standardized tests. I'm sure you all have already been getting ramped up for what's to come for your junior year. But if you don't already know, or you may not know if you are applying to test blind or test optional schools yet, and even if you are, studying for and taking the SAT or ACT just helps you to see, of course, what you would get. If this might be a test that you could use to your advantage, if you scored really well and you want to have an additional layer of competitive edge, this might be beneficial for you to do. And it will also help you determine, hey, is this worth me taking the test again? Can I take the test early enough where I can start preparing and getting an even higher score? The earlier you prepare, the earlier you study, you register in advance, you have enough time to kind of make those decisions. So the longer you wait and get closer to the deadline, the harder it will be to retake the SAT or ACT. Also, don't be afraid to retake it if you aren't happy with your scores. And some may find that one test fits their style better than another. So it's up to you to kind of do that practice test, over and over and see what might be a better fit. Personally, mine was the ACT. Yours might be the SAT. So it's just better if you start in advanced.
Yep. I definitely agree with Arianna. It's actually recommended that students take a test, like whatever standardized test that they're choosing for college, 3 times to get their best score, because sometimes students may deal with test-taking anxiety, right? Their first time, and they don't really perform how it would be expected to perform. And both the ACT and the SAT, they super score. So it's actually to your advantage to take each test multiple times, because if you get a better score on one section in one sitting and then a better score on another in another sitting, and those combine, and that's your super score. And both tests do that, and it's typically recommended that you choose one and not try to take both like several times. Like you could do practice tests of both, as Arianna was suggesting, and then pick that one to focus on specifically. But they are kind of different tests in what they ask of students. So if you're trying to take the SAT in March and then take the ACT in April when your school offers it, and then take the SAT again next year, and like that may get to be a lot for your brain. So picking one will help.
All right, college lists.
Okay, so college lists are a beast, right? Some people are just like, whoa, how do I look for 15 schools? Do I even know 15 schools? There are 5,000, right? And that can be a bit anxiety driven, right? Inducing when you are creating a list that is supposed to be full of places that you can see yourself in for the next 4 years, right? So we recommend at Quad that you start early with thinking about creating your list, because this will give you the opportunity to research schools, right? Learn about them online, going to college fairs, doing visits. I always recommend for my students the summer of their junior year, if they're not doing an access program or a program that supports them, or even if they are doing a pipeline kind of program, that they also do college visits with their family. It could be that you're in a state for a family trip and then you visit that local college. Just take advantage so that you can understand what schools are offering. Right? It may not be a school that you're even going to put on your list, but to understand that X, Y, and Z college makes you pay for laundry, while this other college gives you free paper and free printing and all of that. Like, that is some stuff that some students care about. And talking to students while you're on campus can also let you know what is happening at college, right? Like, you don't know if you want to go to college, you know it, but like being on a college campus helps you picture yourself in a way that is unmatched. So visiting in your junior year is definitely recommended. Going to virtual admission events. A lot of schools, not all schools, but some schools, they actually keep track of students' expressed interest. So this could be like opening an email that they've sent. This could be going to a virtual admissions event. Like, they keep track of all of that information. So think about that once you are in this stage, right, of preparing, how you can show schools demonstrated interest over time. Keep notes about your thoughts on each school, right, after you visit and interact with them, students, faculty, staff members. This will help you create a list that is truly reflective of your interests. And then you can get supports from your quad counselor in creating schools that are either a reach, a target, or a fit school. And we identify these schools as schools. Reach schools are any school in the top 20s, or like any school that is within the Ivy League. Target schools are schools that students fall within the 50% percentile range of their school admissions. And then a fit school would be a school where a student may fall in the top 75%, right? So thinking about how you can categorize those schools will prepare you when you are doing your applications. And also know that this isn't a list that you're going to frame and put up in your family's house, right? This is something that you can remove, add things. This is a working list, and it may be working to the last day of your deadlines, because sometimes last minute you'll be like, oh, I actually don't want to apply to this school. It's asking me for too much, right? So thinking about that flexibility as well, and providing yourself a well-rounded list of 12 to 15 schools that really will cater to your needs as a student.
Awesome. Absolutely. And just want to go to you meant virtual admissions events. So even if you cannot attend the school physically, try and reach out to a tour guide or someone who's going to do a virtual tour for you, or even current students, and have a list of questions ready that you've already compiled and are must-have features or must-have support for your future school.
Yeah.
Have that list and add to it. The more that you go through what you're looking for in your major, maybe you're adding more and more questions as far as what you're going to ask on these college visits. And again, as Fedjounie already said, this is not a static list. It's okay to have your heart set on one school, attend it or visit, and say, hey, that's not really the vibe I was looking for. So change gears. It's okay. And again, it's okay to be close to the deadline, but the earlier you start and the earlier you start navigating your list, the better you can plan for the tedious college specific school essays that will come about.
Right.
And I just want to add too, it's like, if you are visiting a school that you're not sure about, or a school that you have had your heart set on since you were 5 years old, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to think not like things about a school, or even just not like the feeling of it and not see yourself there. It's okay to, take all of those learnings and then think about what you do want in a school and find schools that will fit that as well. So you're really looking to see, do I feel like I could be successful here and be my best self? Mm-hmm. All right, the college essay.
Awesome. So do you have to write the entire college essay your junior year Of course you do. No, I'm just joking. No, it is great. Like we already mentioned before, the earlier you start, even if it's just brainstorming, even you said, hey, by April, I'm going to have at least exactly the idea or events, key events that I want to highlight that happened, or moments that I'm really proud of. Again, you can read the prompts, write down those 3 ideas for each. If you want to, like Fedjounie mentioned, don't save everything in the Common App. Put it in a separate Word document, but write the prompts down for each that really speak to you. Or come up with your own prompt. That's also an option on the Common App for you to create your own essay topic. Create lists to help inspire topics. Sit down, brainstorm with your quad counselor, with your parents, with your get other people involved and really spark those creative juices. So again, rough drafts. The earlier you start, you can develop those few solid ideas and start revising the ideas and flesh them out, and then start writing. So sometimes if you're like me, you might suffer from perfectionism of sorts, and you refuse to write until everything is perfect. Just write. Just start writing. Create mini drafts of your personal statement. That's what's expected. The earlier you start, again, the better this will be. And it helps to have a few ideas drafted out to work from. And then that way, when you get closer to applying to school, you already have, hey, this is the best draft. This is the best idea. This really highlights everything that I want to show, that shows my personality. And it really gets across my genuine individualism. That's what I want to submit. So just don't be afraid to start, though.
Yes. Echoing all of the amazing things that Arianna is sharing, and just emphasizing that this is an iterative process, right? Like you are going to be writing, rewriting, rewriting, and that you shouldn't feel bad about that, right? Like everyone is doing their personal statement several times, because that is the way to get to a better personal statement, right? Doing several editing drafts with people in your life, right? Your family, your friends, your English teacher, yourself, right? Like reading it aloud to yourself and being prepared to sit with 650 words and look at them and read them until they don't look like words anymore, right? So just know that that's normal.
Absolutely. All right. So financial aid and scholarships. I think the next couple of slides we'll go through on the little bit of a quicker side, so we have time for Q&A, but we'll definitely hit the most important pieces of all of these.
Yes. So financial aid and scholarship deadlines are not the same as college application deadlines. Often they are radically different, sometimes earlier than these application deadlines are. So please research the financial aid requirements and scholarship requirements for your specific schools from your list. Sometimes they will have a separate application that is different from the FAFSA, the free federal application for student aid, or the whatever state application for aid that you have. So understanding that schools may have that on top of school specific aid, as well as the CSS profile or like IDOC. Like there's so many different ones. So try to be intentional in your research and preparing for that. Research scholarships, look for local scholarships, talk to your guidance counselor about supports and resources, look for online resources. They are databases like Going Merry or College Vine, CAPEX, right? A couple of places that will have scholarships or have compiled scholarships. And just make sure you're making note of all deadlines and requirements and have your materials ready to be submitted early, because this is information that not everyone is prepared to give, right? Like you'll have to have your tax documents from 2 years before, right? Like you'll have to bring in information about the make and model of your family's cars and things like that. So bringing all of that together will require some time. So prepare in advance and make sure things are submitted early so that you can have a response and understand what your financial aid looks like.
All right. So let's do about 2 slides on tips for success, and then we'll dive into the Q&A.
All right. So resources and tools to help you stay organized, hit your milestones. And we already mentioned a few earlier, but college planning websites. So we have College Board, the Common App as well. College Board, and it's a few others that will also help you to be able to research about the specific colleges like niche, some other resources as well. And then, of course, the Common App will help you to put all of this organized, and you can kind of see if you go to add colleges, if you develop or create an account, you can actually add all of the interested schools that you're interested into, and see when their deadlines are all at once. These platforms always help to provide comprehensive information. Don't solely base everything onto one. I can't reiterate that enough. Not every one resource will have everything. So make sure you do your due diligence and research. If this is a school of choice, go to YouTube, go to follow up with alumni that might have gone to the school, go to virtual tours, talk to an actual counselor that's with Quad or at the specific school, or it's so many resources that you can do to just really make sure you're getting the comprehensive information that you're looking for. And then, of course, the application process and financial aid. As Fedjounie mentioned earlier, some financial aid or scholarships are due in advance before the application. And then, of course, calendar and planner apps. Use digital calendars. Your phone is one. Google Calendar, Microsoft Outlook. Literally any app, any technology, a piece of paper, you can write out your schedule. Just write it out. That's the number one important thing, is to record and know your schedule better than anyone. Keep track of key deadlines, college events, college visits, standardized test dates, extracurricular activities. Keep track of it all, because ultimately the responsibility is yours.
Yes.
Sorry, I tried to auctioneer that one.
Yes. And our last 2 points of tips before we go into a kind of summation for you guys is speak to your school counselor, right? This is a really great resource for you, as they can provide personalized support, offer advice on college choices, review application materials, and help you stay on track with your milestones. This can be both counselors, right? Your counselor from Quad as well as your in-house counselor at your schools. I always recommend to my students to build a relationship with their counselors, like as soon as you're walking in freshman year, right? Because your counselor will have to write your recommendation letter. They'll have to send your school profile, and they'll be on top of the things that you can't handle, like sending your own transcript and things like that. So having a good relationship with them will support you. And also utilizing task management apps. So things like Trello, Asana, or Todoist, right? To create to-do lists, set deadlines, and track your progress on various tasks and milestones. I know that it's not something that you really do in high school, right? Using Asana, but it's something that's very popular in the corporate world, because it's a space, right, to connect with different teammates, to organize a project, right? You can do it task by task, like we were talking about earlier, right? Going step by step, breaking down projects and sharing it and having that in one virtual space. That could be a really great resource for you, your parents, and your Quad counselor, right? Like having that space so everyone can stay on top of what you're doing. Trello is very similar, and Todoist, I don't think has that interface for you to share, but they're all opportunities to stay on task.
All right. And then, we talked about all of these, but we'll go through them very quickly, and then we'll start answering some questions.
All right. So as we mentioned, just tips to helping stay on track of these milestones. So when you're researching colleges, it would help to create a spreadsheet or document, work with your quad counselor, so that way you all can collaborate and work on, hey, when are the deadlines for the particular school list that I've already created? What are my fit schools targets and reaches, and how do I fit in as far as the application deadlines and requirements that are coming up? Are there additional classes that I have to take or additional things that I have to do? Preparing for standardized tests, registering in advance, knowing when those test dates are, studying to those test dates, and just helping to secure your preferred slots. If you know an event is coming up or you know you can't attend something, just make sure you're keeping track of those dates in the aforementioned project management tools that we already talked about. Begin drafting your college essay. So if you're working with your English teacher, your quad counselor, your mentor, your school counselor, just staying on track of it and starting early to help refine and flesh out those ideas to make you stand out. And then, of course, exploring scholarship opportunities to make sure you're well in advance of those deadlines. You probably can apply to some tomorrow that are due. So just make sure that you're looking up and trying to stay in advance of when those deadlines are and how much you might need.
All right, Q&A. Thank you both so much for going through all of that. Let's dive into a couple of these questions. So this one was from when we were talking about extracurriculars. Someone wants to know how does trying to make a nonprofit organization fit in with leadership and extracurricular activities? Is that something you should be trying to do? Does it count as an extracurricular?
Yes, it does count as an extracurricular. I would say that it's really hard to create a nonprofit. Well, it's not hard. You can create a nonprofit, but it's difficult to create a successful nonprofit, right? And to do that as a high school student would be an undertaking. If you are very passionate, you have this problem, you have a solution, you really want to do this, and it's something that you think you can balance, go right ahead, create a nonprofit, address that need, right? But it's not necessary, right? You can create a club at school instead of a whole company and business if that isn't something that makes sense for you as a person. I think it just depends on who you are as a student and like the resources that you have, right? If you're creating a nonprofit, you're gonna have to do grant writing, you're gonna have to do this X, Y, and Z, right? It's a startup. So knowing if you have the capacity to do that ultimately.
And just really quick too, and if you're gonna do it, try and find someone who's doing it and ask them, hey, what is my first step? What should I be doing? Because this could be something that you start and start in high school and you continue out through college and you go on, and that's something that you take on after college if you're really passionate about it. Mm-hmm. But if you're not, then it's other ways to make an impact.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So with SAT and ACT, say you take it once, you have an amazing score. Should you take it a second time if you're really happy with your score, or a third time, or is it okay to not take it multiple times?
Do you like taking tests? I mean, if you just want to take tests for a hobby, but if you have a 1580 your first score, then what's the point in, I would say it depends on where you're trying to go and what your score is.
And then with deciding to take the SAT or ACT, do colleges have a preference? And do you know of any resources off the top of your head that are helpful in preparing for the ACT?
Colleges don't necessarily have a preference, right? Like for both the SAT and the ACT, there are score conversion charts, there are tables, right? Like they have created it so that they're equally measured, and schools can depict that, but it's a question of like access for a lot of people. They say that the ACT was created to make it a bit more accessible. The SAT ranked supreme. It was the first standardized test, right, until the ACT came onto the scene. So it just depends on who you are. One caveat is that the ACT features science. And that is not something that is on the SAT. So if you know that you struggle with sciences, well, well, there is science on the SAT, but it more be like reading science rather than doing science, which is what is on the ACT. So if you struggle with science, then I would not recommend taking the ACT. And resources for preparing, there are a lot. Quad offers resources, but if you were to look on the ACT's website, right, when you register for the ACT, they offer resources, 12 months programs through Kaplan, Princeton Review. Like there are a lot of test companies that do that with students.
And Khan Academy for free.
Yes.
And I think there's like tons of books, practice tests. There's a lot of different resources. And then is there anything that you recommend from what we talked about today, specifically for students with undecided majors, or any tips that you have in like junior year to help figure out what you might want to be?
You know any, Fedjounie?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. So for undecided majors, I would recommend that you take advantage of all these tips, right? Like take advantage of all of the extracurriculars and opportunities that you have. Most schools, they don't let students choose a major, honestly, until their sophomore year. It won't be publicized. Like you could apply to a school undecided as long as you know who you are and why you want to pursue continued education. It doesn't have to be in a specific field. So highlighting parts of your application that show like, I don't know, but I want to know. Right? Like I've taken advantage of X, Y, and Z extracurricular. I've taken this AP course. I've done this and that. And like, I may want to mix everything together. In some schools, they offer that. You can create a blended major or a blended thing. So don't be discouraged if you are undecided. And even if you are decided, right, you may change. I went into school molecular biology and I graduated with a degree in Portuguese and African American studies. So you're not grounded to the things that you apply as. So applying undecided doesn't weaken your application in any way.
Absolutely. And on top of that too, a lot of times the first 2 years are your required or
Gen Ed.
There we go. Yes, I'm like on the words. And then your last 2 years are more major specific, or sometimes depending on the school, they will weave it throughout. However, it's like Fedjounie said, it's okay to switch majors. It's okay to double major. It's okay to minor. It's okay. You can do a lot of different things if you find that you are passionate about a lot of different things. It's okay. And that's something that you will take. You'll take on more once you get into college. But if you are just looking for a major to apply under, I believe you can apply under undecided and you don't have to declare a major at all. But if you're looking for specific programs like dual majors, then maybe choosing a major that is STEM related or specific to that particular field would be better.
All right. Well, I think that wraps us up for today. I know we went a couple minutes over. Thanks, everyone, for sticking around. Arianna, Fedjounie, it was wonderful to have you both. You gave a lot of great information. And for everyone who joined us, you'll receive an email with a recording of this webinar in the coming days. And thank you all for joining us. You can get more information on the website for additional webinars that are coming up, or schedule a time to talk to one of our consultants and hear a little bit of how we can help you through this process and make it a little bit easier. I hope everyone has a really great evening.
Thank you all.